They always say your whole life can change in the space of a single flight. For Zora Williams, a 12-year-old girl who grew up counting coins for bus fare in East Baltimore, her life changed somewhere between cloud cover and chaos when a man worth more than her entire neighborhood collapsed at her feet, and what he whispered upended everything she'd ever believed about herself. You want a hook? Here's one. A poor black girl, flying solo for the first time, saves a dying millionaire on a storm-racked plane, only for his final words to split her world in two. I'm your father. Yeah, that happened if you'd been on flight 2187 that day. You'd have seen Zora clutching a hand-me-down backpack, knuckles white, nerves twisted tight as she walked down that alien aisle. Businessmen sipping champagne, flight attendants with those perfect smiles, blue light, soft voices, and the thump of her own heart in her ears. She was there because of a letter that had landed in her mailbox 3 weeks ago, thick paper and fancy type promising an inheritance matter and a ticket to London. Her grandmother, still fierce even as chemo shrank her frame, had doubted every word. No one leaves money to people like us, she'd said, coughing between drags on a menthol. But Zora's father, dead since she was 4, was named in that letter, and so here she was, alone, terrified, and hoping that maybe, just this once, the universe would throw her a bone. She sat in 14A, whole row to herself, watching the first-class curtain ripple as a different world played out up front. There was a man, silver hair, suit cut so sharp you could slice bread with it, a face etched with power and regret. Richard Harrington. He barely glanced her way when she boarded, but when their eyes met, she felt an electric jolt, a flicker of confusion, maybe recognition, but then his face shuttered closed. The kind of man, Zora figured, who could buy a plane, but still end up alone in a crowd mid-flight. After turbulence sent drinks flying and hearts pounding, Zora saw him again. This time not from afar, but up close and falling. She'd gone up to return a photo he'd dropped, an old, creased snapshot of a young black couple. Her mother, unmistakable, and her father, James Williams, tall and grinning in a Howard shirt. Why did this rich, white stranger have her parents' picture? As the question burned inside her, the plane bucked, oxygen masks tumbled from the ceiling, and suddenly Harrington was gasping, slumped across his seat, eyes rolling back. Chaos surged. Is there a doctor? Somebody help. But Zora pushed through the panic, found herself at his side, pressing her small hands on his chest. Don't you die on me, she sobbed, compressions counting down the seconds between hope and disaster. If fate hadn't twisted just then, maybe that would have been the end of it. A tragic headline, a girl alone in the world, another secret lost to the clouds. But as the plane steadied and medical help arrived, Harrington grabbed her wrist with surprising strength. Through the oxygen mask, his words tumbled out, raw and broken. The photo. James and Eliza. You're their daughter. Zora froze, a cold terror blooming in her chest. You have to know. Ask your grandmother about July 17th, 1992. You need the truth. He pressed a small metal key into her palm. The next moment, paramedics whisked him away, and Zora was left shaking, clutching a secret she hadn't asked for and a key to a past she never imagined. The emergency landing in Newfoundland was a blur of sirens, airport security, and rumors spreading like wildfire through the terminal. As she waited for news of the flight, the Millionaire, her own uncertain future, an unlikely friend appeared. Dorothea Jackson, a retired nurse with kind eyes and a peppermint stash. Family's complicated, honey, Dorothea told her over watery hot chocolate. Sometimes secrets get buried so deep they're almost fossilized. Doesn't mean they won't come clawing their way out when you least expect it. And in that moment, surrounded by stranded passengers and airline staff, Zora finally let herself cry. Just as she resolved to keep her questions bottled up, the hospital phoned back. Harrington was stable. He wanted to speak to her. Are you really my father? She blurted out, skipping any pretense of small talk. His answer was quiet, worn thin by years of regret. Biologically, yes. But James, he chose you. He was a good man. Your mother, she made choices to protect you, protect herself. Bit by bit, a story unraveled. A forbidden romance, secrets hidden for decades. James stepping in to raise a child who wasn't his by blood, but became his by love. Harrington, sidelined by fear and cowardice, had watched Zora grow from afar, funding her school and community center, never daring to step forward until now. By the time Zora boarded the next flight to London, she was drowning in questions. Who was she, really? Why had her mother lied? What did Harrington want? What was in that safety deposit box the key opened? And most of all, could love be real if it was built on a foundation of secrets? London was a blur of old stone, busy streets, and a hotel room that felt more like a movie set than a place someone like her could ever belong. There was a letter waiting from Henderson, the law firm partner who'd summoned her across an ocean. The next morning, dressed in her best Target dress, Zora marched into a paneled boardroom and demanded the truth. What she got was more than any kid should have to process in a lifetime. DNA tests confirming Harrington's claim. A trust fund for her education and future, money she'd never imagined. Options for guardianship if her grandmother's health failed, including Harrington's own sister and a beloved teacher from Baltimore. And then, finally, the letter from her mother. Pages and pages in familiar, looping handwriting. The truth poured out at last. It was a confession and an absolution, a love letter and a lament. Her mother wrote of ambition and heartbreak, of falling for a man who could never claim her, of a marriage of necessity with James, a friend who chose fatherhood out of pure, stubborn love. She wrote of postpartum depression that never let go, of paranoia and delusions that stole her peace, of the painful decision to leave Zora in her grandmother's care before she could do harm she could never undo. She wrote of Harrington, the shadow father, who had failed her when it counted but never stopped caring from afar. Zora read every word, her world shifting and splitting and coming together in new ways. She saw her mother's pain, James's quiet heroism, Harrington's guilt and longing. She understood, at last, that family is forged by choice as much as by blood, that love can be as messy as it is fierce, and that sometimes the bravest thing a parent can do is let go. By the time Henderson returned, Zora was no longer the same girl who'd boarded that flight in Baltimore. She asked to visit her mother's facility in Arizona, to speak with her grandmother again, to see what lay inside the box Harrington had left at the bank. She wanted, for the first time, to choose her own future, not as a victim of circumstance, but as the architect of her own story. And here's where I'll leave you, for now. A 12-year-old girl, battle-scarred by secrets but unbroken, holding a key to her past and her future in the same hand. What would you do if your whole world was turned upside down by a single sentence from a stranger? If you had the chance to rewrite your own story, would you cling to the past or reach for something new? Drop your thoughts in the comments below. What does family, truth, and justice mean to you? Don't forget to subscribe if you want to follow the rest of Zora's journey. This story's just getting started, and trust me, you're not going to want to miss what comes next.